Hey, greetings, everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West here, and welcome to the Steadfast and Loyal program.
You gotta light 'em up before they burn it down. Better dig deep, put 'em in the ground. Blood on their hands, they're hellbound. Save us all. Ooh, they're gonna burn it down. Save us all before they burn it down.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the next segment of the Steadfast and Loyal program. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West here. You know, everyone's in a state of euphoria, without a doubt, about the results of the November 2024 election, but it continues on. And as we've been talking about, the left is not changing their stance. They're not changing their policy positions. As a matter of fact, they're not doubling down. They're not tripling down. They're quadrupling down in many ways. And the rhetoric continues to get even worse. So when I think about some of the most, egregious members of the United States House of Representatives and the Senate, one person definitely comes to mind, and that is a person that is right here in the city of Dallas, and that's Jasmine Crockett. I mean, there is no decorum, there is no respect, there is no regard there. And really, there's no policy solutions offered whatsoever. But there's a young man that has stepped up and said, as Isaiah did back in chapter 6, verse 8, when the Lord asks, "Whom shall we send? Who will go for us?" Well, Sholdon Daniels said, "Here am I, send me." And we're joined with Sholdon Daniels right now, who is the candidate for United States Congressional District out of Texas, number 30. Sholdon, thanks for joining us here at the Steadfast and Loyal program.
Thank you for having me, Colonel West. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about you a little bit. Let's introduce you to the audience. Kind of give us a little bit of your background, where you were born, where you grew up, and your education and your family life.
Yes, sir. I was born in a small town right on the Red River, right when you first come into Texas from Oklahoma, called Denison, Texas,
Oh,
which is a
where
historic.
Eisenhower was born there.
Absolutely. So I was going to mention that, and but I grew up in the town right next to Denison called Sherman, Texas. Which is where I spent most of my formative years. But, my mother had me at 19 years old. And, when she was young, obviously we moved around a little bit. So I spent some time in elementary school in Arlington, Texas, Dallas, even a very small town called Whitewright, Texas, which is where I met my wife when we were very young. And so I'm a country boy, Texas born and bred. And as far as family life, I'm married, 38-year-old man. I'm about to turn 39. I've been married for going on 11 years later this year to a beautiful woman named Elise. Again, we met in her hometown of Whitewright at church. And I have two amazing, beautiful little children, a 7-year-old son named Sholdon. I have a 5-year-old daughter named Nova, and we are expecting our third baby literally any moment now. So
Wow.
I could get the call right now.
Well, congratulations.
yeah.
So we better get through this interview. Now, reading your bio, you also spent some time in the United States military, and thank you for your service. Tell us about that, and
Thank you, sir.
how did service in the military shape you?
Service in the military shape. So, growing up how I did, I had male role models, but I lacked positive, very disciplined male role models. I had one, my Uncle Bill, who happened to be a veteran as well. But as he got older and as I got older, I needed a little bit more. And so, when I was a teenager, I did all the things that, teenagers growing up in urban areas do. Made a lot of the same mistakes. But when I joined the military, the first thing that I noticed about the military is it gave me a confidence that it changed my life. When you see people do things that you think are impossible, And then they train you on how to accomplish those goals that you thought that you could never accomplish. And that just starts to become kind of a habit to you, where you start looking for bigger and bigger challenges, and you surmount these challenges. That is what the military gave me. So it gave me a sense of courage and bravery and confidence in myself, which I still carry through life with me today. For instance, this entire campaign and challenging a Democratic behemoth like a Jasmine Crockett takes courage. I realize that. I know what I'm up against, but I have seen people do it before. Therefore, I know it can be done. And the military taught me that. That is the most important thing that the military taught me. So I could go on and on about things that the military gave me and taught me, but that is the most important thing. And that is what I try to instill in my children too, is, never run from a challenge. And if it's been done before, then you can do it as well. So,
It's great that you say that because I remember when I came into the United States Army, the motto was "Be all you can be." They tried to get away from that. Now they came back to it because they, realize how impactful it is. But when you talk about courage, it brings me back to one of my favorite Bible verses, Joshua 1:9, where God told Joshua, "Be strong and of good courage, for Lord thy God shall never leave you nor forsake you." It is a big undertaking to, take on someone like a Jasmine Crockett in a district that many people have written off previously. She was basically the heir apparent to Ernie Bernice Johnson, I think it was her name,
yes, sir.
that I served with in Congress. When you look at you doing this after the military, what educational experiences that you have that you think prepares you to be able to do this race?
So my personal passion, intellectually, I'm just naturally drawn to history, particularly American history, specifically Reconstruction era American history. And so I admire one thing about me is growing up in Sherman and kind of in the situation that I grew up in. Um, there was a lot of energy and effort put into teaching me to hate America, right?
Mm,
From people who had bought into the left's lies. And it took years to get that chip off of my shoulder. One of the most important things that helped me get over that was learning that people like me have never really been alone in this country. There have been good, solid Americans since before our official founding who have always stood for what's right. And we don't get taught that enough in our schools and just in society. It's very black and white. It's very us versus them. But when you really go and do the research and you learn that it's never been that. It's always been somebody fighting for us. We just had to do this and come together. And then that's how I learned about the formation of the Republican Party. And
mhm,
that's what I teach people to try to bring them back into the movement. But I digress. My education, um, since I'm naturally drawn to history, when I went to college at UT Dallas, I majored in political science, and I had it was an interdisciplinary studies major where half of it is politics and half of it's business.
mhm.
Because I knew that for me to empower my community, I had to have some type of entrepreneurial skills. I needed to be able to talk that language. Most of the people in the community are hardworking people, and they know how to make something out of nothing. Sometimes that's in a good way, sometimes it's in a bad way. But I knew that for me to relate and to lead, I had to know how to build a successful business, and I had to understand how business and politics worked if I wanted to empower my people. And so that was my degree. I knew I wanted to be an attorney. I knew that when I was in the military. I knew it in college, and so when I graduated, I moved to Houston. I attended law school at Thurgood Marshall School of Law, which is where I trained myself in how to become a trial lawyer and an advocate. I founded the Civil Rights Law Society, and I was very active on my campus as far as trying to wake people up to what really matters in our community. And so, and what I mean by that is wake people up to what really matters is, it's not all about partying. It's not all about having fun. Let's take advantage of the time that we have here. Let's take advantage of the opportunities that we have, and let's take it another level, take it to another level. And so when I graduated law school, I took the bar first time. Mind you, I was dirt poor this entire time. Like I was
Mhm.
just scraping by. I moved back to Sherman, my hometown, and I interned and I studied for the bar. And then when I passed the bar, a friend of mine called me and actually let me know that I had passed the bar. I hung up my shingle, meaning I started my law firm because I couldn't wait. I was chomping at the bit. I already had my website already ready. I published that. And I got my first case. Judge Fallon out of the 15th District Court in Grayson County swore me in. Britton Brooks, who was a DA at the time, loaned me. He cut me a check for $250 so I could pay my dues, my bar dues, so I could actually practice law. That's how broke I was. And ever since then, I've been rocking and rolling. And so since 2014, I would say I've probably represented over 1,000 individual clients against, the government trying to basically trample on their individual rights. And I've represented, I don't know how many businesses and small business owners and entrepreneurs. And I've even dabbled in entertainment law as well.
Wow.
And so that's been pretty much my career for the past 11 years. It's just in service to people, trying to help them make their dreams come true and protect their rights against government overreach.
It's very interesting you say that, because Thomas Paine once said that the duty of a true patriot is to protect his country from its government. And I think it's so important that someone is looking to go and represent people in the halls of Congress. And you have been out there trying to represent and protect their inalienable rights, their life, their liberty, their property, the pursuit of happiness. Real quick before we go to break, in stepping up to do this, what was going through your mind? I mean, what was the trepidations and the concerns you had, but what gave you that green light to go?
There's just a different energy and feeling in the country right now. And as my daughter ages, my son, obviously I love my son, but my daughter, it was something about my daughter and just her innocence that just made me look at the world like I needed to make it a little bit safer. I needed to make it a little bit better. I felt like my daughter is under attack from the left, and it scared me. And I'm the type of person where if I see a problem, I can't just stand around and do nothing. If I see someone in distress, I'm not the type of person that can just stand there and do nothing, which that's part of the reason I joined the military. I was a little ticked off about 9/11. It happened when I was still in high school, but even a couple years later, President Bush did a good job of keeping us riled up because I was raring to go. And I took that personally. And now that I have children and I'm almost 40 years old and I'm already thinking, okay, how can I leave this world in a better place than I found it for my kids? I had to get involved more than I am. So a lot of people pat me on the back for practicing law and I help a lot of people, but I always knew I could do more. And it's really just the life that chose me. I wouldn't say that I've chosen this path. It's just certain doors open and this is where I'm at. And I know that I've taken the right step in the right direction for me and my family. So that's the best way I can put it. As far as trepidations, honestly, I was more afraid of coming out as a proud Black Republican in my district. That was my biggest fear. But if I can comment on this, I know you got to go to break. All those fears have been eviscerated over these past couple of weeks because people are waking up. They are no longer buying these lies that they've been sold the past 6 decades from the left. And they are chomping at the bit to have a champion go to Washington, D.C. and speak on their behalf.
Well, one of the things I believe, fear is of the devil, and courage and do not be fearful is mentioned countless amounts of times in the Bible. And, 3 types of people, Sholdon. There are sheep, wolves, and guard dogs. You're definitely a guard dog. And folks, we'll be right back to continue to have a conversation with Texas Congressional District 30 candidate Sholdon Daniels. We'll be right back. Hey, folks, welcome back to our final segment of this episode of the Steadfast and Loyal program. We are talking with Texas Congressional District 30 candidate Sholdon Daniels. Great conversation so far. A young man who has, really is all about the American dream. It's about the equality of opportunity instead of the equality of outcomes. It's about being a victor and not being a victim. So, Sholdon, we talked about your initial trepidation where, you're coming out in this urban district as a Black conservative. When was the road to Damascus moment for you when the scales came off your eyes and you said, I don't want to be a part of this victim mentality and this progressive socialist leftist ideology?
When my representative voted to keep rapists, murderers, and child abusers who also came here illegally in our country, and I knew that the stakes were getting very, very real for my children and for all children all over the country. Also, I have relatives, friends, family who have been victims and touched directly by this fentanyl just flood. So, when people think about open borders, the left tries to frame this as it's just hardworking families wanting to come over here for a better life. But what they don't tell you is all the fentanyl that's flooding our country that's coming through that border as well. All the criminals that have been dumped in our country as well. And I've been personally touched by this. I don't want to get too personal, but I have people in my family who have lost their lives as a direct result of these open border policies. Okay. And I can't stand around and wait for something to happen to my wife or my son or my daughter. I had a person who was here illegally break into my home a few months back, and I had to run out, with my firearm drawn. And it's to the point now where living in Dallas, you're not safe anywhere you live. Police response times are extremely slow. It's kind of a running joke in our city right now that it's the Wild West and it's wide open. Now I know I can protect my own, but I know there's a lot of people out there that can't protect their own. We need people in DC who are going to lead the charge to secure our nation's borders before we send billions of dollars overseas, before we spend billions of dollars on all these wasteful government pet projects. And these are all the things that my opponent supports. And so I want to get in there so that we can have somebody actually fighting for us, the people of TX30. And I'm a big believer, Colonel West, I know you are as well. I'm a big believer that when you hold Texas, you hold the nation. Right now, my district is a white hot battleground for the soul of Texas. And somebody has to step up and lead that charge. And I know that I'm the man to do it right now.
I got to tell you, I think it was about 10 days or so ago, the interim police chief in Dallas said that he was not going to work with ICE. And you were referring to the incumbent in Texas 30, Representative Jasmine Crockett. I mean, she voted against protecting, women from criminal illegal immigrants. Talk to us about some of the prevalent issues that you see, not just that issue of the impact of criminal illegal immigration, the drug issue, but what are some of the other issues critical there in Texas 30?
You kind of broke up there a little bit, but I think I understand what you were asking me. Some of the issues that we see immediately, you're gonna feel this sense of you're just not that safe. I can remember growing up, I could go outside and play until the street lights came on. And my mother didn't have any concern about my safety. Maybe she did, but for the most part, we were safe. I don't have that same luxury as an American in 2025. And it doesn't really matter where I live. I'm right here in Texas, which is on the front line of the US-Mexico border, and we feel it. Whenever people come over here, they're under our bridges. I can drive 2 minutes away and I find 50 people that have nowhere to be all day. They got access to drugs. We have no idea who they are or where they came from. And I'm afraid to allow my 5 and 7-year-old kid to just ride their bike 2 blocks around the house because I don't know who they're going to run into or what's going to happen to them. This is a direct result of Biden's open border policy. And so somebody's got to get in there and support our president and getting that situation under control.
Talk to us about the demographics and the structure and the location of Texas 30, because this podcast program, goes out all across the country. So kind of give people an orientation to Texas District 30.
Okay. If you're not familiar with Dallas County, it's shaped like a square. And the city of Dallas is almost smack dab in the center. And we have an airport that's about 5 minutes northeast of downtown called Love Field Airport. And so my district, what it does is it encompasses all of downtown Dallas almost, and then it goes south from the Trinity River all the way to the southern limit of Dallas County. But they got it gerrymandered to where it wraps up around Love Field Airport. So I have Love Field Airport at the top northern border of my district, comes down through downtown, And then when you hit the Trinity River, everything south of that is all my district. I have 11 cities in my district. I have about 780,000 people living in my district. Most of the people living in my district are around 34 to 36 years old.
So let's talk about the economic demographics of the district. I mean, you talk about Love Field. That's the headquarters of Southwest Airlines. That's a pretty important, airport and airline. What do you see are the major economic issues for Congressional District 30?
Some of the major economic issues are we need to get home ownership rates up higher. It's I won't say a housing crisis, but what we have is we have people who are living paycheck to paycheck. They're renters, and when they get older, they have no net worth. And my whole deal is I want to create opportunities for people to increase their net worth, keep more of what they earn, and learn to invest. So we're talking financial literacy and we're talking home ownership because that's where your wealth starts, is owning your property. Okay, so in 2025, for example, 40% of the people in my district, 40.1% are African American. Okay, African American home ownership rates in my district are lower in 2025 than they were in 2000. Okay, this is a problem. And so I would like to see more home ownership in my district. I'd like to see more investment in small businesses because hardworking families and small businesses are the backbone of TX30. Most of the people in my district own a small business, whether it be a convenience store, a dentist office, some type of professional services being offered, manufacturing job, management jobs, hardworking people. But they still can't seem to get to the point where they can own a home. And so this is something that I think needs to be looked at, and there needs to be a lot of investment into financial literacy or something to empower people to make that jump to become homeowners.
You know, we have just heard the news about the Chicago branch of the New York Stock Exchange moving to Dallas. You know, how can you look at something like that and try to create a benefit for the people of Texas Congressional District 30? Because if it goes downtown, you would be the congressional representative for, that branch of the New York Stock Exchange.
Yes, sir, absolutely. And so one of my favorite ideas, as far as a bill or legislation, when I'm elected, is I want to abolish. There's a rule. We can get technical, but basically, there's a rule called the accredited investor rule, which essentially it limits people from being able to take advantage of certain investment opportunities, not based on how smart they are when it comes to their financial literacy, but based on how much money that they have. So what it does is the effect is if you're rich, you can get an opportunity to invest in these investments, whether it be an IPO or some type of private investment opportunity, and make a lot more money and get even richer. But if you're not already rich enough, you can't even participate in this opportunity. I don't think that's fair in 2025. And so I'd like to abolish that rule to allow more people who may not have as much still have the same opportunities as the people who have everything. So
How?
this,
Yeah.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, it wouldn't just allow them to take advantage of certain IPOs and investment opportunities that are exclusively available to the wealthy, but it would also allow them to pool their funds to create new entities, new businesses, right? Because they're limited
Hmm.
from doing that as well. If they don't have a certain amount of money, then they can only approach a certain amount of people to raise a certain amount of money. I want to open that up because I envision it working like this going forward. I can see an entire neighborhood of people being able to pitch in, say, $250 a month to build their own grocery store right there in their community. And then they can all share in the profits of that. But the way our securities laws are set up, but if all those people aren't worth more than $250,000 individually, they won't be able to pool their money that way because the law is going to prevent them from doing that. And so I want to abolish things like that prevent people from being able to access opportunity to grow their wealth and realize the American dream.
Well, economic opportunity and educational opportunity have to be restored in our urban, centers. And you and I talked a couple of days ago. That's something that has really been decimated. I grew up in the inner city of Atlanta. In the last 2.5, almost 3 minutes that we have, I'd like to turn it over to you to kind of give your elevator pitch, but really talk about what delineates you Sholdon Daniels, candidate, Republican candidate for Texas Congressional District 30 from Jasmine Crockett?
I'm sorry, you were breaking up. Can you ask me that one more time?
Yeah. What separates you from Jasmine Crockett as the congressional candidate? And also, I'd just like for you to be able to close out in the next 2.5 minutes your thoughts, your perspectives, your vision for Congressional District 30.
The difference between Jasmine is I'm for the people and Jasmine is for herself. I would like to give opportunities to the people to better themselves without trampling on their rights or getting more control over them. Jasmine would like to do the opposite. She wants to give you free stuff. She wants to tax you into the ground, and she wants to control the words that you use. She wants to change our language and give words that we know and love, like woman, a new definition. She wants biological males in the locker rooms and the bathrooms with our daughters. I don't. She does not represent TX30 because TX30 is one of the most diverse districts in America. Okay, we are not a welfare district like she tries to paint us out to be. We are full of hardworking people, hardworking small businesses. And for those people to be properly represented on Capitol Hill, they need someone who's going to open up the door to more opportunity, who's going to allow them to keep more of what they earn in their pockets, and someone who's going to help keep their community safe by securing our border. Jasmine has already proven on many of these issues that she is not going to fight for us, that she is not going to protect us, and that she's going to spend all her time chasing headlines and trying to build her own personal brand than giving a voice to the people of TX30. And I am the diametric opposite of that. And my career has shown that. I've had opportunities to chase fame online, to get into the entertainment industry. And every time I turn it down because I'm more motivated by just helping people than, being famous. So that's the main difference between you and I. With her, you get a celebrity reality TV show, walking, just with me, you're going to get a nuts and bolts fixer type Congress.